just, I, I caution anyone that is even thinking about becoming a Lincoln presenter, be very, very careful. You know, people generally come up to me and our conversations start with, has anyone ever told you? A director came up after a little play that I had done and said, you know, shave your mustache, color your hair, and we can do Lincoln.
It was very obvious that people were calling me Lincoln, and had several people that would mention the fact that I ought to try to enter one of the Lincoln look-alike contests.
I frequently had people yell out, "Abe," as I was walking down the street. But then again, I've also had them yell out, "Cosmo."
There he is. It's George Lincoln. They get the two presidents mixed up. I thought you was dead. He's alive.
Somebody will come up and say, you look like President Lincoln, or you look like the guy on the penny, or on the $5 bill. See, we picture in our minds people, and certain people then kind of fill those shoes.
But in 1975, I had a mustache and a goatee and decided to shave that off. My daughter at that time was 6 or 7 years old. I shaved it off, and when she got up that morning, she took one look at me, cried, went back to bed, because 1976 was going to be the bicentennial of our nation. I used that as an excuse to grow the Lincoln-style beard, and it stuck.
First year I grew a beard. I had a number of students come up and say, did anyone ever tell you you look like Abraham Lincoln? I quite often get comments from children that I should be taller.
I'm 6'10". I like to think I've grown with the times in the country.
When I'm not even dressed as Lincoln, people come up to me and say, did anybody ever tell you you look like Abraham Lincoln?
In airports, when I go through the security lines, some of the people there running that will say, well, has anybody ever told you you look like Lincoln? And then they look at my luggage going through and they see the top hat on the screen.
I've had kids look at me with their mouth hanging open. Mr. Lincoln.
My wife and I had gone to the Grand Ole Opry to see George Jones in concert. The band came out and played a few songs, and then George came out. He sang 2 songs and he just stopped singing. He said, there's a fellow in the audience. I do not know who he is, nor do I want to embarrass him, but gestured to me, said, would you stand up? So George Jones stops the whole show. I stand up. We talk for 6 or 7 minutes about presenting Abraham Lincoln. And then he goes on with the show.
As far as I know, I'm the youngest active Lincoln presenter. I don't have the facial features that some of the older Lincolns have. I'm just not old enough to be craggy yet.
First, I used my image as a instant, basically shock treatment.
I have been driving down the street and had people stop automobiles next to me and roll down the window and say, are you related to him?
The only thing I can tell you is these are the eyes I was born with. I am an 11th generation Lincoln. So if we go backwards from Abraham Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's father was Thomas. Thomas's father was Abraham. Abraham's father was John, also known as Virginia John. Well, John's brother, Mordecai, came over into Fayette County. Going down the line, it was Mordecai Lincoln, Virginia John's brother, Mordecai Benjamin, Mordecai S., William Edward Rose, Carl Lincoln, and Ralph.
I know some Lincolns that, quite frankly, look absolutely nothing like Lincoln. But when they step into that character and when they are telling that story, you forget that they're 5'6" instead of 6'4".
You know, when I first started doing Lincoln, I went to see a woman who was doing a book review on David Herbert Donald's book on Lincoln. In doing that book review, she did both Abraham and Mary Lincoln, and she changed characters by literally changing hats. If you know your material well and can present it well, people will soon forget what you look like.
As I've done this for enough years, eventually I'm not going to be believable as a non-bearded Lincoln, and I will have to decide whether I want to hang up my stovepipe hat or whether I want to.
Started in October of 1975. About that time, I started growing a beard, just like Mr. Lincoln did after Grace Bedell wrote to him right before the election in 1860. Kids started calling me Abe. One thing led to another, and now the rest is history.
I came in from the back of the room. People didn't expect me. And looking like Lincoln, a lot of people froze up. And then I started shaking hands and talking with the people like Lincoln would, till I got up to the podium or the stage. By the time I got there then, most people who knew anything much about Lincoln said, yep, that's just the way old Abe was.
I have been presenting Lincoln since July 4th, 2003, so this is my third year.
My story is typical. Somebody remarked to me how much I resembled Mr. Lincoln. One winter, I decided to shave off my mustache. Every winter, I'd grow a full beard and mustache. And at a church home group meeting, a local school teacher who was a member said, Rick, please come to visit my kids because you look so much like Lincoln.
I do more school groups than anything, and I do everything from preschool to college and university level, but I do church groups and civic groups.
Looks great.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Great,
Thank you for
great.
being here.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Can you show me where we're supposed to change?
I would assume it would be right here.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm getting ready to do a program for the church here, and I have to kind of make the transformation. I might look like Abraham Lincoln, but I'm certainly not dressed as Abraham Lincoln. I used to wear an awful lot of makeup as Lincoln, but I was younger then, and now I'm not. So, now I don't have to add my own wrinkles anymore, but I do have to add, if I can find it, oh, there it is. Lincoln had a little mole I have to add with just a little spirit gun. It really looks dark, so I covered up just a little bit of foundation. Think that'll do. Now, since Abraham Lincoln had gray eyes, and my eyes happen to be very dark brown, I have to put in contacts. Most people don't realize that Lincoln had gray eyes, but I know that he did, and it just helps me to be a little bit more in character. Now, none of my clothing is period correct, with the exception of maybe one of the vests that I wear, but visually, it works. This particular presentation I'm going to do today for this group is entitled Was Abraham Lincoln a Christian? I wish I could take credit for it. I heard another Lincoln presenter do it in Hodgenville, Kentucky, back several years ago, and quite frankly, I didn't know if he was telling Abraham Lincoln's story or my story. So I went up to him afterwards and just told him, I said, you know I'm going to do that. And he said, well, just go ahead. And, of course, Lincoln didn't wear a wristwatch, so I have to get rid of that. I do carry a pocket watch with me. Mine is very ordinary. Abraham Lincoln did not wear a wedding ring. I am a very happily married man. But when I do Lincoln, I take my ring off, put it in my pocket. When my wife is with me, she wears it on her finger. So, but I take my ring off to stay true to the character. You cannot show up anywhere without the hat. Of course, I won't wear this hat in the church. That would be very disrespectful. I will, however, be asked, I'm sure, before I leave here by someone with a camera, would you please put your hat on? And, I'll do that. But, Abe has to have his hat. And other than that, I'm ready to go. We can do this. All right.
Born in Glasgow, Kentucky. The doctor came out and delivered me on site. So I was born in I don't know what I would call it, backwoods or not, but Kentucky farm country. On our Sunday afternoon drives, my dad would take us up through the countryside of Kentucky, and we would go through Hodgensville and the various areas around through there. So I was definitely familiar with the area where Lincoln was born. Don't know very much about the Lincoln Day celebration in Hodgensville, other than the fact that they do have a look-alike contest. I always thought it would be interesting just to see how I would fare in something like that. So I think the opportunity provided itself this year, and I'm going to give it a try.
Our Lincoln Day celebration has been going on officially for 34 years now. Part of the Lincoln Day celebration festivities from its origination has included the Lincoln Look-alike contest. The contest itself is based somewhat upon looks. However, the application of fake parts such as moles and hair is not disallowed. Each contestant is given 2 to 3 minutes to relate a Lincoln story or anecdote. All of these various aspects are given weight by the judges. The authentic appearance, the delivery of their comments, and the way they carry themselves.
Well, the ALP was thought, a vision of Dan Bassick. Dan had the idea that there are people out there portraying Lincoln, and we really ought to get together, organize. We have 181 Lincolns on the list and 49 Mary Todds. So we have members in 38 states. Back in about 1995, Jim Sayre thought we really ought to get together once a year. The annual conference was born, and it's proved to be a real shot in the arm for all of us.
Of course, see, one of the things that we had decided right away that we wanted to emphasize was character, patriotism, Lincoln's faith. We wanted to hit those things because those are things that public schools especially can't talk about a lot.
I'm trying to find someone to make me another double-breasted frock coat. This thing, I've had this thing for years.
He does one fitting. I got my clothes in the mail, I put that coat on, and it fit perfect.
Is it all together fitting and proper?
Fitting and proper. Indeed it is.
We're at the Harriet Beecher Stowe home, the lady that wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin. As president, when I first met Miss Stowe, I said, "So, you're the little lady that started this war." Of course, she wasn't.
That's his study. That would be the parlor, and that would be the dining room.
One time I was in a department store. My bill, actually, truth, came up to $5 and $5.01, and I brought this out, and they started yelling for the manager.
We've had other presenters. We've never had such a large group of the same kind of presenters. Our children are learning so little these days in school. These gentlemen are able to bring it to them and make it interesting and make it living so that it means something to them.
Lytle Park, Cincinnati. I've never been here before, but I hope to find some information that might be valuable to our Lincoln.
There's supposed to be a Lincoln statue here, isn't there?
I believe there is a Lincoln statue here. We'll look at that and inspect that today.
This is a magnificent statue, and it's an interesting pose, not one that I've actually seen before.
All right, let me have your attention right here.
Charlie, move that way a little bit. Oh, too far, babe. Back a little bit. Excellent. That's perfect. Don't move. Everybody right here. And we're going to go one.
Honest Abe loves you.
Don't get up there.
He asked you to take a picture.
No, it's up there. You don't want up there. We don't want to break that slippery. We don't want you to. It's made for it. Yeah. Let's do it.
Jim Rubin, you have a display back there. Would you like to
speak to the group about that?
You want me to come up to the mic?
Only if you have a cell phone. What's the mic?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? There's a picture of me shaking hands with Liam Neeson back there on the table. He's going to play the role of Mr. Lincoln in a new movie. Steven Spielberg is going to produce and direct that. He made some comments about my look-alike. I don't know where he got that from, but anyway, he said something about that. And he tugged on my whiskers, and he said, nice set of whiskers you have there. He'll make a good Lincoln.
The living. I had a lady tell me last weekend. She said, "We need you at our event." And I said, "What event?" She said, "Uncle Dave Lincoln Day." I said, "Well, you don't believe me." I said, "You have a wonderful Lincoln that goes there, Gerald Beastrom. He plays musical songs." She said, "Oh no, he's dead." And my jaw just dropped. I said, "What?" And so while I was waiting for Stan to get his cell phone number for me, I went online, and the first thing I saw was that, yeah. And I said, "Well, he's alive and well. He was in Florida." So I called him, he answered the phone, and I said,
when he answered the phone, he called, and I said, Gerald, he said, "Man, am I glad to hear your voice."
On one of the papers, I believe it was USA Today, and it showed a picture of Gerald Beastrom's motorhome, all decorated like a log cabin. It did say on there Association of Lincoln Presenters, and the group was already formed in 1990, and this was, it's already been in existence for like 5.5, 6 years.
He's our special Lincoln of the Year, and this award goes to Stan Lentz.
Winning the Best Lincoln of 2005 was an honor, because you know that there are many, many other Lincolns out there who are very, very, very good.
If we have any talent at all, we can share the strengths that we have with each other. And that's one reason for these conventions, that we can strengthen the weakest links so that we present a good chain to you all.
It's an awfully high-tech gizmo for Lincoln.
Now, why would Lincoln need that?
Because this Lincoln's pretty busy. My whole life is in here. Just in case it would happen to go off during a program, I have the ringer set to hail to the chief.
Yes, we've been all over this country. We've been about not every state in the Union, but most of them here, plus Hawaii.
Over here, sir. I got a problem over here. One of the presidents, I thought he was a man of conviction, but if you come over here and look, you can find out he's waffling. Come here and take a look. This president seems to be waffling now.
I'm waffling, yes. I don't have waffles at home very often.
That's 20 days, but Dorothy, well, you can't even pronounce it. I can also, but I can't pronounce it.
Cornhart.
It's written by a woman. You need it. $2. Bald-headed Lincoln.
No, I'm just a Lincoln convertible with the top down.
10 over here?
No.
We're close. You're 8.5.
Sold.
Knock her down.
I was about to go to the library to do some homework, and I saw a bunch of people right here and taking some pictures. Looks so nice. So I was kind of curious. Many people are wearing so formally. Yeah, they look like the people from the Capitol Hill or something like that. I know something about Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
That's who they're supposed to be.
Really?
Little girl, junior in college, junior in high school probably. She came up and she said, "Would you mind if I kissed you?" And I said, "Well, at my age, I've never checked." And she said, "You came to my school when I was in second grade." And she said, "That's the most impressive talk that anybody ever gave." And I still remember lots of things you told me.
We're a fellowship. We're like a fraternity of sorts.
I'm a lifetime member. I paid my dues, and I'll be a member until I go to the theater, I guess.
Looks like I got my new hat. Get into this hat. Yep, that's my hat. Ah, a lot better than my old one. With the proper coat, I'll be in business.
I'm standing next to Abraham Lincoln's hat. This is a hat that came to the Smithsonian in the 1860s, and we only know a little bit about the hat. We don't know when Abraham Lincoln acquired the hat, but we know the last time he wore it, which was the night he attended Ford's Theater. The hat is a very typical, not very expensive top hat. It's got a paper form, and then applied over that is a silk wrapping. The idea of a very tall individual, very conscious of his appearance, choosing to pick a hat that in some ways exaggerates or brings out his height. Being very tall, the hat actually makes him taller and standing out even more in a crowd. And I think it's a very conscious statement. As you'll see on the hat, there are really two ribbons around, or two bands. One is a typical band just from the hat itself and from the hat maker. The other is a large mourning band placed on the hat, or at the request of Lincoln, to commemorate and remember the death of his son, Willie. So the band is also, I think, a reminder of the suffering and the loss of the nation as a whole. And so I think it has a double and very personal meaning to him. Lincoln's hat has become an icon of Abraham Lincoln. Why, no one really knows. And at the time of his life, it wasn't something that was always associated with him. This person who's striving to make more of himself, this sort of young boy from the frontier becoming a lawyer, a politician, a gentleman. So he saw it as a symbolic object as well in some respects.
Hat, I think that people associate Lincoln with the hat. I know that in taking pictures, people ask you for your photograph with them, and oh yes, Mr. Lincoln, could you put your hat on?
Shall I put it on?
This is my hat. It was given to me by fellow presenter Dennis Boggs. I think it was a hat he had worn for several years, and he actually outgrew it. So instead of making a flower pot out of it, he said I could have it.
I'm Norm Hill. We represent the 13th United States Colored Troops out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. We're here on Armed Forces Day to assist Mr. Lincoln in this presentation. And we march with Mr. Lincoln in Armed Forces Day parades, Veterans Days, and Memorial Day programs as his honor guard.
Oh!
All right, reassemble on the other side.
Everyone goes through the gate and reassemble on the other side.
Well, it's funny.
No wonder we lost the first 2 years of the war.
President, you want to be in the middle?
In the middle, okay. All right.
There you go in the middle. Word, march.
Confederate cabal face.
1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. When you're holding that flag, you always keep the flag up.
We don't get anybody audience-wise, then we'll want to. You guys can go ahead and take seats.
We need to be on the outskirts of that, you know.
Well, I'd rather have pictures with the seats full than with the seats empty.
Did anybody invite Mr. Lincoln to the theater later?
Mr. Lincoln, would you care to go see a play?
Other than that, how was the play?
Hold my hat.
Where's the cameraman?
Yeah. Bring on General Lee. Yeah, that would be. I'm not firing this backwards, am I?
No, you're right.
Gettysburg wouldn't have lasted very long.
No.
Wait. Now, that guy, yeah, you make a young Abe Lincoln.
It's 77 years ago.
Very good, very good.
Aim, high elevation, fire! Fire!
Hold it, come here. Yeah. Got it? Yeah. Good. Well, we'll just sit here and read about the war. How about that? Okay. Me and you. That's right.
A good impersonator is somebody who obviously looks the part, but also has some sense of what it's like to be that person. Whether they've done a lot of reading, whether they have watched if there's film available, and they have to want to know what it was like or what it is like to be that person.
I began studying Lincoln, and the more I've studied about him, the more I love the man. He's really a fabulous American in so many ways.
If all that a man wants to do is put on a black suit and a tall hat and march in a parade and wave at people, he doesn't have to know a great deal about that. And if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. If you're going to do a performance and then open yourself up for questions afterward, you'd better know what you're doing. Lincoln is the most, I'll make up a word here, biographied man of modern times. I think the only individual who's had more biographies written of him than Abraham Lincoln is Jesus Christ.
He's not cut and dried, and I think there's a sense in the American psyche that he's one sort of person. You know, he's the man who saved the Union or freed the slaves, and that's what most people know about him. But when you begin to study more about Lincoln, there's so much there, and his emotions run the whole gamut, and he's just a very human, interesting character.
The one thing that separates Lincoln presenters from Lincoln actors is reading.
Study. Be sincere about what you're doing. Care about what you're doing.
Now, entirely too many Lincoln presenters only can recite the Gettysburg Address or a few things like that. Now, there are a lot of people, however, in this organization that know their Lincoln quite well. See?
I've had some wonderful mentors. I know Lincolns all over the country, and some have forgotten more about Abraham Lincoln than I'll ever know. But what I have learned from them is I file all this information away. Every time I learn a little tidbit, now I'm to the point that if I meet someone and they have a certain name or they're from a certain state or a certain city, I can almost immediately come up with a Lincoln story to connect with them.
I think meeting Dennis Boggs would be interesting, and some tips from him would probably not hurt anything. I'm assuming he's not going to be in the contest to compete against me, so maybe he'll give me some tips on how I might improve my Lincoln.
Would you be John?
Hey, watch your head here.
Well, we're both a little tall. Well, I'm Dennis Boggs.
John
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Good
It's
to meet
a pleasure.
you. Well, come in and have a seat.
All right,
Let's
thank you.
get
Thank you very
started
much.
here.
Yeah.
Here we go. Tuna.
Thank you, young lady.
Here's the
Thank
box.
you.
You'll just be treated, well, you'll be treated like a celebrity almost, you know.
The only problem I foresee is what you're doing right now is all this knowledge you have of that. People are going to expect me to know something about Lincoln, and I'm going to have to study.
No.
It's been a long time since I've studied.
Once you really start to read about this man, if there's a little Lincoln inside you, he will draw you in. I went to the contest the first time in 1997.
Did you win it?
Well, yeah, I did.
All right.
I did.
Way to
Now,
go.
now, that being said, now, I look back now and I think, golly, how did I do that? Because my beard and my hair were much different. I didn't even wear a hat. I had a hat, but I didn't like it, so I didn't take it with me, so I wouldn't have to wear it.
I had one. It was
terrible. I was just getting over a knee surgery, so I had a cane, and I went up there, and I thought I was just, you know, I don't have a chance up here. I looked at all these other Lincolns, you know, and there was one guy in particular that, my God, he looked like Lincoln reincarnated. If you go up there and you take part in this contest and you win, there's a fabulous prize. You get $100.
All right.
They say they judge you on your costume, your hat, your beard, and your speech. What they're looking for more than anything else is someone that has that passion for Lincoln. You will come out of there, I hope, with a lot of newfound friends, and your wife too. She will meet some ladies that she can relate to, that they say, oh yeah, he does this all the time, and that's all I hear is Abraham Lincoln. That's the one place that you can go for a whole weekend and dress like Abraham Lincoln all day long, and nobody looks at you like,
Who's that strange
what's this guy about? Yeah. Some of the things that offer the biggest challenge are, number one, finding the right kind of hat. You need the right kind of hat. All right, let's see your hat.
I got a hat.
Let's see your hat. Good hat. Good hat. All right. Put it on.
Let's see. Like the red ribbon, I guess, goes in the back.
Yeah. Wear it the way that it is most comfortable for you.
I tried it one time, and further back it didn't look.
Right.
It seemed like
but
somewhere
that
in
looks good.
neighborhood.
That's a good look. The first thing people will ask you, where's your hat? Where's your hat? Have you got your hat? And then kids will say, do you have papers in your hat? That's one of the first challenges is finding a hat. The second is, of course, finding the right kind of clothes. Now, you can go all out, and there are places out there that will sell you a Lincoln costume that they claim is very authentic, and you will pay an awful lot of money for it. But all it takes is a long black coat, a black vest, and a pair of black pants, and a tie.
I've got a feeling I'm going to need to do a little work to get the hair parted on the other side, too.
Well, there again, look at the photos of Lincoln. Look, let me show you, if I've got a $5 bill. If you'll see, Lincoln's hair doesn't even look like it's got a part. Lincoln never combed his hair.
That's what I assumed.
There's even a picture of Lincoln with what looks like that we would call today a punk hairstyle, with it sticking straight up. I found a lot of similarities between Lincoln and myself. If you can find something there that connects you with him, then you will begin to relate. When you get up and deliver that little 2.5-minute speech, people can tell if you believe what you're saying or if you're just reading it,
I have no idea where I'm going with this or whether it'll go anywhere or not.
Well, you have to see if you get bit by the bug.
Well.
This is the second coat that I bought, and it's always been a little bit large on me. Okay. Turn around there, Mr. Lincoln. Now, oh yeah. Once we get the sleeves out, and it hits you just about where it's supposed to, put your hat on. Good gracious.
Did that work?
That worked.
Thank you kindly. I appreciate it.
And I have felt what it is to be a president and feel the hairs on the back of my neck raise. When somebody hates you as much as a person that I felt that by. Actually, just to be in their presence, to feel that hate, and not only that, to look at their child and know that child hates you just as much as the dad does.
Hate is hate, and you can't get around hate. The heaviest thing that a person carries in life is a grudge.
Somebody hollered out some obscenity as I was walking down the parade. What the blankety blank are you doing here? Those that would want to still fight the Civil War, I have no use for them, if that's the way they feel about things. And I'm above all that.
I was waiting to have a picture taken, and the photographer was late, and I was sitting in a buggy. And it was a place where the public had access to, and I heard footsteps behind me coming down the walk, and I turned around as if to say something to somebody who was there, just good afternoon, and it was a lady holding a youngster, and she said, if, in a southern drawl, if Grandma had known we were going to see Abraham Lincoln, she'd have had you bring your bang bang.
And after the park had closed, I walked across the camp to the Confederate side and found 2 or 3 gentlemen there who did not think much of Lincoln and seemed to be of the opinion that the North and the South were still in conflict with each other.
Oftentimes you can just hear it in their voice where they'll be very skeptical of things Lincoln has done. Well, Lincoln didn't really free the slaves, did he?
I was at a big gun show in Los Angeles, and I walked by this one counter, and there's a guy behind there. He looked at me, and he just glared. Mr. Lincoln, oh, the worst president we ever had. And he was growling, and I sort of tippy-toed on by and didn't stop. I didn't know what else he might have done.
I've been I've been verbally abused more than once, but they're very, very seldom, very seldom. It's always been from a place that I never expected it, though. You know, most people think that the fellow with the four-wheel drive pickup truck with the Confederate flag in the back and the rebel hat on, you know, they think that he's an out-and-out Lincoln hater, and that's not true. I'm a Lincoln presenter. It is not my job, it is not my mission to change their mind. If they dislike Lincoln and they have reasons for that, that's their right. I present Lincoln in the best format that I can. I try to present President Lincoln, warts and all.
It's cold. It's an honor. And just think of what the guys had to go through. We're not in the Ardennes.
Yes.
No.
13th, let's form. Let's go.
Golly, what a fine-looking group. It's our element. I figure we can do it the way we want to.
Yeah. And,
Because they also say we're supposed to be behind the Confederates.
When I came here first time in 2000, it was just me and Bill Radcliffe.
Well, we got a few more this time.
Right. Well, I got to go up here and see if I can annoy some of these Southern boys.
Go right ahead, sir.
And we're all right.
HK is one of the best spokespersons for Dixie. He preaches Dixie and he walks and he
Lincoln
talks and does it all.
Yeah, you ruining my image, boy. That's all right, glad to see you, but you're ruining my image down here. You're on the wrong side of the table. You're ruining my image down here. I got a flag for you. Now, we can straighten out history. You can get it right this time. Well, have me around here hobnobbing with Lincoln.
The first time he was up here saying, why don't you just walk around with a target?
I don't know why he come around over here want to hobnob with me, because I ain't for hobnobbing with Lincoln.
It's all this. It's all this.
It ain't no fun to me. I'm serious as a heart attack. I'm standing around here with my Confederate friends. I sure hope that you don't show me standing around with Lincoln unless you standing around with a dagger in my hand.
Yeah, I just had a wonderful conversation with our black Confederate across the street.
Oh, good.
He wasn't too proud about me coming over and saying hi.
Oh, man.
I'm here to work on you, and that's all.
Well, be nice to me.
I'm going to be nice to you. He has to be nice to me. All right, we got to go get some more stuff.
Okay, you need some help?
No, we'll get it.
Okay. I brought you some instruction manual here.
Now, is this Abraham Lincoln's hair, or is the other way Abraham's hair?
I'll let you look at some of those pictures and you tell me.
Well, he didn't have a beard there.
No, I mean, there was a time when you didn't. Mine's starting to curl up, getting so long here. I don't know what we need to trim out a little bit.
You got another 2 weeks to deal with this.
Yeah.
I guess we're probably more used to him having a beard. Well, it didn't there.
Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't really grow the beard until just before the election.
We're going to get to business.
Okay.
Let's have your mascara.
All right. I told her I wanted something that was water resistant and waterproof and didn't have an extender in it. And she said, well, try this. I said, one will probably do it, but
Be still.
Be
I'm going
still.
to start at the bottom.
all right.
We'll see what this is going to look like. Well, I think the mascara is just a great deal because you can control this, and Betty can do it.
I'll frighten my wife tonight when I go home. Of course, these formal shirts aren't really the shirt that he had in most of his pictures. They had some sort of collar they just cut short, and the tie showed underneath it. I think I'll just take my Abe Lincoln personality and go downstairs and see if anybody notices. Now does it look presidential? Thank you. I appreciate it. You're a good woman.
We got a celebrity here tonight.
Somebody I've got to...
Hello, Abe. How are you doing?
This guy right over here. Will you vote for me? No. I knew he was a Democrat. I'm a Whig. Oh, well. I think we've made an appearance now.
You don't want to do anything that in any way will sully the image of the person you're impersonating.
If you're going to put this coat on and you're going to present this man's story, as I said earlier, it comes with a certain responsibility.
In any kind of a job, acting, whatever it is, I believe that you should do it the very best you can. And so that's my point of view there. But now if you want to be stupid, well, you can. But you're not going to last very long either.
The Lincolns who are trying to take this to a more professional sort of situation do find it a little disconcerting, or more than disconcerting, to see someone who is only doing this just on a lark or just for fun, which is not bad in and of itself. And I can't say that I really resent them doing that, because Lincoln is an accessible character to everybody. And so if someone wants to portray Lincoln in a different way, I think Lincoln himself would like to laugh at himself and would like to see people looking at some of those different aspects of his character, or at least to have the freedom to present him any way they wanted to.
It makes me feel good, makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something and doing something.
And you know what? You touch the hearts of everybody that you walk by.
I come out here, I create excitement, people want pictures taken, and if that changes some people's lives or excites them, then that's my purpose, my mission.
Where's the beaver?
Oh, he's home sleeping.
Oh, darn!
It's not that I'm patterning my life after Lincoln, it's just I'm patterning myself the way I believe, and being honest and true and helping people that makes me a natural Lincoln. Yes, we are open. Come right through the door. We are keeping cool air in. Okay. Decided to come in here because when I was here last, I remember seeing that, so I decided I had to come in here.
Are you going to the theater tonight?
No, I'm staying away from the theater.
Good, very good, very good. Want to make sure.
See, after a while, you learn to kind of know what to say. Sometimes before, I didn't know what to say or how to react. Now I can kid around with people with no problem. I guess I'm not threatened because I enjoy what I do, and sometimes I can just come up with stuff, not even know where it came from. It just comes out. Think about doing this for 6 and 8 hours a night, every Saturday, or pretty much almost every weekend. How's it going? Hey, how you doing? Hello, how you doing?
Nice to see ya. You're looking pretty good.
Well, thank you.
Oh my God, you are friend. Hey, I pray every single day.
All right, Abraham Lincoln is in the building.
There's a good movie playing at the Ford Theater you might want to get.
Oh, I stay away from theaters and balconies.
Yeah,
200 years old.
Hey, I'm so privileged to be standing next to the man who wrote the Emancipation Proclamation. Set us free,
Set
boy!
us free.
Set us free! Hey,
Hey, how's it going tonight? How you doing, Abe? Oh, doing pretty good. It's almost 8 o'clock. Things will start picking up real quick here. Hey, how you doing? How's it going?
Hey, I bet to fight George Washington whoop your ass.
You know where Ford's Theater is?
Yeah, I know where Ford's Theater is.
Don't go there.
I am so sorry, but I have a best friend in here that her crush is Abe Lincoln.
Yeah?
So will you come say hi to her?
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Dude, I'd like you to meet Abe.
How are you doing?
Hello.
How are you?
Yes, I love Abe. Abe's hot.
There you go. How can you argue with that? Yeah.
He's
Sure.
I
love Abe for many reasons.
Why's that?
The Emancipation Proclamation, and then because he's so tall. I love that. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And
Hey,
you
guess
have
what? I have the same birthday as Abraham Lincoln.
Well, that's a good birthday to have. Yeah. Well, take care. She's kind of cutely dressed, wasn't she?
You are a tall man, Abe Lincoln.
Well, thank you.
Hey,
how you doing? How are you?
I'm a big fan of Abraham Lincoln. He's got your autobiography.
Yeah.
4 of them.
4 of them?
Not autobiography.
Oh, how are you? Another Elvis.
Hey, y'all, check it out. It's just like being on a heroin trip. Elvis and Abraham Lincoln are talking today.
Hand to the chief. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll find a nice round of applause for Mr. Abraham Lincoln. Come on. That's right. Let's everybody give a nice hand to Mr. Abraham Lincoln as he paved the way on the dance floor. How about that? Ladies and gentlemen, country music is not dead in Robert's Western world. Neither is Abraham Lincoln.
For most of his political career, Abraham Lincoln was not a Republican, he was a Whig. And when he was elected in 1860, he decided to form a cabinet. He had to form a cabinet of 7 people. He chose 4 ex-Democrats and only 3 ex-Whigs. This got his Whig buddies quite upset, but he said to them, I have 4 ex-Democrats, 3 ex-Whigs, plus me. I'm an ex-Whig. That's 4 and 4. That's balance in government. Balance is important in our lives as well. And this happens to be one of the things I like to do. It's called a bongo board.
I was not happy with the tie that John had. So I decided to design one from looking at pictures of the book and see how closely I could duplicate it. And there's the tie cut. So you fold one that way and one this way, like this. That's basically what it will look like.
To be a good impersonator, you need to be 1 part entertainer and 1 part historian. You need to be able to present an accurate portrayal of the person you're impersonating, but at the same time, you want to touch something in people that somehow approximates the original.
A lot of our Lincoln presenters are bone dead serious. In my deepest thoughts, if I could not have fun doing this, I would have to quit tomorrow because I just couldn't enjoy doing it without having fun.
I think so much of the history we have are kind of intellectual snobs who say we want to have history for historians. But yet we keep praying, but the people don't know history. Well, then what have you done so that they can get into history? See?
Indeed, for that crowd, whether it's young people or adults, for that moment, whether it's an hour or all day, you are Mr. Lincoln.
Amazingly now, they really see him as Abraham Lincoln. And even at the end of the program, they are still asking, are you the real Abraham Lincoln? So he's alive to them.
Now, if you're thinking about him, are you thinking? All right, keep your eyes closed and be thinking. He won't come unless you will him to come in your mind. You may
Well, good afternoon. No. Good afternoon. Oh. My story starts like this. A long, long time ago, before the days of your grandparents, your great-grandparents, or even your great-great-grandparents, I was born on February the 12th in the year 1809. When the water got dirty, she'd pour it out in the yard, make these big mud puddles, you see. Well, this was my great idea. I got my little stepbrother, Jonathan. Come up here. What's your name? Jacob. All right. Well, you don't mind being Jonathan, do you? No. All right. I get my little barefooted stepbrother. I took him out in the yard, and I stood him down in that mud puddle. And I squished him all around. And then I picked him up. I took him in our house, and I stuck his muddy feet up against the wall. And I let him walk up the wall and across the ceiling and down the wall. When our mammy came in and she saw those muddy footprints on the ceiling, she said, well, land sakes, how can anybody walk up there? If this young lady will just stay in school and study very hard, there's not a power on this earth that can stop this young woman from growing up and being the President of the United States. Oh, yes, sir.
I thought you were dead.
Come here. What's your name? Michael. Michael. All right. Everybody put your hands down. Who thinks that I am the real Abraham Lincoln? Put your hands down. No. See, I'm just pretending. So, boys and girls, you read every book on every subject you can get your hands on, because if you can read, you can be and do anything. Thank you, boys and girls. God bless. Bye.
3 days from the event, I guess I'm sort of looking forward to it being over. I guess my expectations would be that I don't totally fall on my face and mess up. I'm going to have my notes here to look down in case I go blank. It's a total possibility. The way I practice it on this is just basically stand in front of a mirror and sit down and read it over and over again. I have a tendency to say something that is totally not in there, so if I don't dwell on that too much, I should be okay. I'll just take whatever comes. I'm not worried about being first, second, or last.
All my performances are given in a dramatic monologue. So I'm not talking about Lincoln, I am him. See?
What a lot of impersonators have told me is that when they are impersonating someone else, they actually feel like a truer version of themselves. They can connect to whatever ideals that person represented and convey them and get a response that makes them feel greater somehow.
This is a process, all right? And I don't know how other people do it. All I know is I get my shirt on and I get my pants on and I start coming together. But the times when I'm good, you know when it's good? When I can feel the pain. When I can feel what he felt and what he had to go through. It's hard being a Lincoln, because being a Lincoln, you have to live your life a certain way. I'd like a beer, but I'm not, as Lincoln, able to have that beer.
One thing that made Lincoln feel more real to me was the emotions that he went through. He did have problems. He battled with depression from time to time. I did that in my own life, so I could really relate to Lincoln that way. I've always cried at movies, tried not to, but do anyhow. But Lincoln and I just connected to him on an emotional level that really surprised me. I don't have to slide into the coat to slide into the character. He has become, and I don't mean this to sound vain or egotistical, but he has become a part of me.
Usually before I go in, I'll try to just read something that will get me into that frame of mind. So I think about things that he might have been thinking, about Willie's death, about being on the battlefield and seeing the dead and the dying. And that makes one very somber after a while.
And when I got here yesterday, within 5 minutes of the time I was ready to get dressed, I was dressed. It's like Superman stepping into the phone booth. Anytime I speak to a group, and I don't care what age group it is, I feel motivated and inspired as much as they do, because I'm pouring my heart into it. I'm pouring my feelings into it.
Bill Sublett, Dennis Boggs, Charlie Ott, who passed away many years ago, but when they speak, you can feel that they are truly feeling what they are speaking, and that almost can give you shivers at times.
I do have moments when I really don't want to be there. You know, I'll have a job for that morning, and maybe I'll be a little bit tired from not getting enough sleep or something like that, and I said, you know, I'm really not into this today. When you get up on the stage and you get in front of the kids, then it kind of changes.
Being in character as Lincoln is, for me, is no problem. In fact, my wife gets upset with me because I'll be in street clothes and I'll be talking to somebody and they ask a question about Lincoln, and suddenly she said, "You're talking as Lincoln. They didn't ask you to give them a presentation, they asked a question."
I say a prayer, I put on my hat, and everything just seems to flow into a pot, and I don't know where it comes from, but it just happens to work itself out.
In working with children, many times I get a question is, "You're dead." No, you can't be alive. And I tell them that people can do tremendously terrible things to your body, including killing you. But they can never take away what you are. And hopefully today, what you are, you can see Mr. Lincoln coming through me, and not only see it, but you can feel it and experience it through me.
In my opinion, what people get out of seeing an impersonator is a sense of not even history so much, but authenticity. They know in their minds, that's not Lincoln, this is not Gettysburg. But there is something about witnessing that reenactment that underscores the message of that speech and the effect it must have had on people when he first delivered it.
The date is November 19th, 1863. Mr. Edward Everett has been the speaker of the day as we dedicate this parcel of land that has been set aside to be known as National Soldier Cemetery. When Mr. Edward Everett is seated, I rise and walk to the podium and have these few words to say for this dedication service. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation.
Conceived in liberty and dedicated the proposition that all men are created equal.
Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure.
We are met on a great battlefield of that war.
We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live.
It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract.
The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here.
It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced.
It is rather for us to be here dedicated to that great task remaining before us.
that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion,
that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain,
that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth.
I have been so fortunate to develop some wonderful friendships. The folks who join us as Lincolns and Marys are a unique group of people. And it is a pleasure to work as a coordinator, if you will, to see that they receive information in a timely fashion, to see that we have made arrangements for their comfort during the day that they're here, to provide as many opportunities for publicity for them as we can, and just in general to provide a place and a way that they can help promote the Lincoln legacy.
I've been trying to get this hair looking halfway reasonable this morning, but I don't know that I'm having much luck. Okay, you ready to put my beard on?
I'm ready. He turned twisted a little bit in his sleep last night. Now you know what women go through to look pretty. If anybody gets that close other than me, they don't need to be to see those little tiny grays. Hold your mouth just right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Somehow I don't picture Mary Todd doing this. Nicole, you got it pretty even. She wants more stuff.
Get over it.
She's not gonna quit. She gets it just exactly right, though. Oh, wasn't that sweet? Okay. You want to put my cufflinks in for me? I need to lose the watch. So I'm all back there somewhere.
And here's your tie, Mr. Lincoln.
And who knows who these were? I think they've been around probably since the turn of the century.
Now, where you
I
gonna
wonder who
do?
that fella is in the mirror over there.
We're gonna do something back of that hair. Take your glasses off so it won't get spray in it. I'm having a blast. I don't know about him.
That was the most presidential pose here.
Very good.
Let's go for it.
Man, I think what's our next number with the Abe look-alike?
Should be in order here.
Mansfield, there he is. Let me get him number 5.
I'm proud of you. Proud of you.
She's only got one, so she doesn't know how to behave.
Okay.
I've never seen him in full get-up before, and I haven't seen his beard this dark in about 15 years. I've only seen one or two others, and both of them are like 5'8". So I'm thinking he probably looks the part pretty well. So I'm going to be excited to see what everybody else looks like.
2006 Lincoln Look-alike Contest. But first, we're going to have the color guard to present the wreath. Our first contestant in the 2006 Lincoln Look-alike, Mr. President.
Well, this here is a celebration, so we're going to keep this short and sweet like the old woman stands. There's been a lot of changes that we've seen in our time. A lot of those changes, maybe good, maybe bad. We've gone from candles to electricity. We've gone from shovels to backhoes. We have gone from scalpels
Abraham Lincoln is my name, and with my pen I wrote the same. I wrote in both haste and speed, and left it here for fools to read.
By the way, Mr. Speaker, did you know I am a military hero? Yes, sir. In the days of the Black Hawk War, I fought and bled and came away.
As I made my way to Washington to take the oath of office, I passed through Indianapolis and was greeted there by that state's Governor Morton. And the following are some remarks in response to a speech he made to me. I feel they're still fitting and appropriate.
Good morning, y'all. It's wonderful to be back in Hodgensville. Mary and I had a wonderful trip down from Illinois.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out today. That's what we had. And I enjoyed my picture skits as I test you all that. And I'd like to invite all y'all to come out of my hometown, to my home log cabin and all that. And thank you all for coming out today.
I rose this morning in a lodging not far from here with a splitting headache, but feeling otherwise quite rested, as if I had slept for many score decades.
Fellow countrymen, with this second taking of the oath of the presidential office, there is less occasion for an extended address than there was at the first. Then, a statement somewhat in detail of a course to be pursued seemed fitting and proper.
Among my various speeches and writings over the years, people consider certain ones to be their favorite. Some would consider it to be my short remarks at Gettysburg.
Fellow citizens, and to all my friends, allow me to take you back to Peoria, Illinois, October 16th, 1854, to one of my most meaningful messages that led me to become your 16th president.
Mr. President.
Thank you. April 14th, 1865. For months, my soul has been troubled with the frightful ordeal of war. But today I feel good. I tell everyone I meet how happy I am, which frightens, I think, my beloved Mary, because she thinks saying it right out like that is bad luck. But I pay her no heed, because today the war is over and it's finally sinking in. Why even comb my hair before I come down to a rare treat of a family breakfast? The official duties of the day are many, including a full cabinet meeting with General Grant to discuss the future of the southern states. But late in that afternoon, Mary and I, we take a ride in the carriage. I'm still feeling supremely cheerful, and Mary even accuses me of being a bit playful. We talk about the times in the past. We talk about the future, and I may move back to Illinois with her, and we'll open a new office. But as the duties of the day go on, we attend the theater, which I do so much enjoy, the diversion. The nights turn cold and foggy as we enter. We're late. The band strikes up "Hail to the Chief." The audience rises and gives me a warm welcome. I settle back into my comfortable rocking chair, and as I do, I lean over the rail and stare off into space, because I really don't pay too much attention to the play. Mary and I have been discussing the Holy Land, and I tell her that one day I would like to visit there. I hear a commotion in the box behind me. I straighten up and I start to turn around, and I feel a sudden press of something hard to the back of my head, and then a blinding light and a loud exploding noise. And then an exceeding peace floods over my soul as the light of the room brightly shines, and I hear my son Willie calling. I must go to him now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, judges, there you have our 2006 contestants. I'm glad I'm standing up here, not seated down there at the table. This is really an extraordinary good group of presenters. We do appreciate everybody coming out this year. It was really a brisk morning, but the sun's coming out. It's going to be great. All right, our third place finisher this year, Mr. Larry Elliott. Our second place finisher, Mr. Kevin Costner. Our 2006 Mr. Lincoln lookalike this year is Mr. John Mansfield.
Thank you. Let's see how we're going to do this.
You know, I think you won it by a mole. Well, I worked hard on those moles.
Well, let's see. We haven't seen each other much since the contest last October. It's been almost a year. I have been trying to learn about Lincoln, and I've surprised myself, really, when you get started into this learning about Lincoln and presenting him to others and seeing actually the joy and the excitement that others see when they see Lincoln. That I think will cause the bug to bite as much as anything else, because it is thrilling to see that most everybody appreciates at least their idea of what Lincoln did. Oh, I don't know that I have any big plans. I'm just going to let one day at a time come along and enjoy it, and hope that I do an honor to presenting Mr. Lincoln faithfully.
Abraham Lincoln is an incredibly fascinating individual, and that's why there is this ongoing interest in him. Something very personal and always surprising about Abraham Lincoln. Coming out of nowhere, in a sense. This humble beginning, this uneducated individual who comes up with some of the most articulate language in American political history. So I think this fascination with him will always exist, because it's really the story of the nation. It's so embodied in Abraham Lincoln himself.
Lincoln saw each person that he met as an individual with some gift to bring to the world.
I just want to make sure people understand that Abraham Lincoln embodied what's good about America. He never felt that God was on his side. He was always more keen on being on God's side. And I think that's the humility that he brings to his role as a wonderful leader.
I don't know that I'd ever achieve anything as great as Lincoln did. It's hard to meet that standard or walk in those shoes in that kind of way. But in presenting Lincoln, I would like people, number one, to remember their history and be proud of their history. There's a lot of terrible things that have happened in American history, but there have been redeeming moments as well.
My favorite quote from Mr. Lincoln himself, and thank goodness somebody wrote it down. I'm not afraid to die, and in fact I would be more than willing, but I have an irresistible desire to live until I can be assured that the world is a better place for my having lived in it.
The just and final rewards of being able to do something where you can give back something in this world. I spent 39.9 years trapped inside of a factory, inside of a building, and I feel like a German shepherd that jumped the fence. I'm never going back, you know.
Everybody should have a passion about something. Something they do that's unique. I think that you need to take that passion and go with it and use that as a gift back to God.
For a while after my surgery, I had a brain tumor surgery, I felt sorry for myself. And you look how close to death I was. There's life after it. It's where you think you have it bad and you have it rough. You don't. It's a test. It's a trial. And how you handle it, how you perceive it, and where you go from there, it's your call. And I think the best thing for you to do, or anyone to do, is step forward and just say, tomorrow's a new day. Let's go out. let's inspire somebody.
Freedom isn't free. And there are those who would have destroyed this nation when it was in its infancy, even as there are those who would destroy it today. Don't forget those who preserve our freedom.
You know, Lincoln came along at a time in my life when I desperately needed something that I could hold on to, something that I could be a part of, that I would be able to prove to myself that there was something that Dennis Boggs could do that would be worthwhile. You know, like Lincoln, my education is very lacking. But the more I read about this man, the more he intrigued me. And we have so many things in common. But he has affected me. I can't. My life has just never. It's never been the same since Lincoln came along. And it has gotten better and better and better. You know, I started out a kid in public housing. Now, I'm gonna go and say hello to a very dear friend, and I hope that that you'll talk to him too.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all sup sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song and the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. There's a pale, drooping maiden who toils her life away with a worn heart whose better days are o'er. Though her voice would be merry, 'tis sighing all the day. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song and the sigh of the weary.